Hey friends, I'm so excited for my conversation with Mike today. It's about letting go of letting go of perfection. And I don't know about you, but for me, as I was answering my call to ministry, there were times in my life when I thought I'm not qualified to be in ministry because my life isn't perfect. And I know not everybody's called into ministry or full time ministry like I am, but whatever you've been called into, maybe at times you have felt like you can't do that because your life hasn't been perfect, or you have thought to yourself that you're eliminated from certain things because your life isn't perfect. Well, today in my conversation with Mike, we talk about the importance of letting go of this need for everything to be perfect. And we also talk about the importance of having people around us who are willing to help us and mentor us and support us, especially through seasons that aren't perfect. So I really hope you enjoy our conversation between Mike and myself. So, week 3, we'll look at this next chapter called Giving Up on Perfect. And the theme that I kind of got out of this book was that God uses our painful experiences to become the seed of hope for someone else's miracle. Now, I said last week that I would tell you which one my favorite chapter is. It's this one. This is my favorite chapter. And you and I have talked a little bit, Mike, but I have been through a lot of painful experiences in my life. And I'm not going to say that I have experienced the most pain or the deepest pain, but I've experienced some deep pain. I was diagnosed with depression in 2011. I thought I ran away from it. Well, that's the wrong language. I thought I overcame my depression in 2012, only to realize I had just masked it. I was ignoring it, and it came back with a vengeance in 2013. And that's when I realized I need a like counseling needs to be a central part of my life. I need to have accountability, people that hold me accountable. I need to have conversations with people. Like, depression is strong in my life, but depression doesn't have me. I have depression. You mentioned that in your chapter. Like, at the end of the day, because of who God is, I'm in charge of my depression. But you mentioned something in the book that it's through those experiences that God can do something special, and that special being, we can speak hope into other people's lives. So, can you talk a little bit about that, and then I have a
Well,
follow-up
one
question
of
for
the
you.
things I heard so often is you've heard me talk a lot about how Carolyn and we're in our 50th year of marriage right now, and it's a really good marriage. But at year 20, we almost got divorced, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. I always challenge you with your own relationship because, especially in
Mm-hmm.
ministry, and it's really dysfunctional, is we can blame God. Well, you're gone night, you work too many meetings, you do well, hey, God's called me to do this. Well, that's dysfunctional. So, we got to year 19 or whatever, and we were kind of like co-parenting and so forth, but we were just kind of like parallel in our relationship. And Carolyn said, I don't want our kids growing up seeing this as love. And we really contemplated divorce. And June 1st, 1992, we said, this is year 20. Our marriage is going to come first. Doesn't matter if we don't feel like we love each other, but we're going to act like. And God still does resurrections. Like I said, we're in our 50th year. August, we'll be married 50 years. And what sharing that and being open about our struggles, our own struggles and pain. Even this past week or this past month when I was preaching at Gainesburg, and I was talking about the budget as a moral document. I said, hey, I'm not perfect at this. I love those hundred and some $1,000 Mercedes sports cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a 2006 for 17,000. Did I need it?
Mm-hmm.
No, but I share these things, you know. So in '06 it cost 90 some thousand, but when they're 15 years old, you see, and I love it, you know. So I think, oh, and Francis of Assisi is my patron saint. And I read about those dudes and I go, but I think, Fernie, as we grow together in community, and we begin to understand God's unfailing love. I'm not talking about cheap grace, because when I felt that I knew that it was going to be risky for me to work in Darfur in a war zone, because God was calling me to do that, I was willing to do that. So, but I think is when we think of perfect, because I read about all these saints, these, like St. Francis and those kind of people, and I go, or Mother Teresa. But even then, she said she felt the absence of Jesus and God for like 40 years. And she did it anyway.
Yeah.
Just that is a help to people like you and me.
So we've got a church member right now. He was diagnosed with COVID in July. Excuse me. Was diagnosed with COVID in July. Recovered from that. Is dealing with long COVID. Last week was in a hunting accident. He fell off a tree, broke a whole bunch of ribs, is in the hospital right now, and struggling even more because he's still dealing with effects from COVID. And he told me the other day, he said, I don't know how much I can take. It's just like one thing after the other after the other. And one thing I realized as I was reading your chapter was this idea that when I begin to follow Jesus, life is going to be easy and perfect is not the promise, right? I mean, we're still going to experience struggles and pain. Like the life is not going to be perfect just because we say to Jesus, okay, Jesus, use me to make a miracle in this world.
Yeah. And what's I think so important, that God reveals God's strength in our weaknesses. So when you can share with me about depression and so forth, and I see, wow, God uses you in a big way, but you deal with everyday life dung, and I think that's the greater miracle is to see hope in the midst of pain, to experience grace. And the church needs to be that. We're too judgmental, is that we can demonstrate grace, seeing that this is a journey, not an instant. When I was a young Christian, I saw some pretty immediate changes. Like one was in my academics. But the other thing is I studied, because I had this purpose in my life. But I wasn't expecting marriage to be as hard as it was and other kind of things. And what I see now is more of what John Wesley called sanctification, in our Wesleyan heritage, is that we're justified by faith, but sanctification is this lifelong journey. And I still have a ways to go at age 70. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do. So one of the things in the chapter that you mentioned was you talk about Luke chapter 1, where the angel tells Mary that she's going to give birth to the Son of God. But then you mentioned in verse 36, he says your cousin Elizabeth, right? Mentions about Elizabeth, and she's also pregnant. And I really found it fascinating when you said that God never intended for us to handle life's unexpected turns by ourselves. And you say Mary is given a mentor, and her mentor is her cousin Elizabeth. Can you speak a little bit about that?
It's critical. Who are the people? I just, in this past year, you always want to have people ahead of you, and then you want to be helping people behind you. And so my 92-year-old mentor passed this year. And what he was showing me is how to age with purpose, grace, marriage, fun. I mean, he was a huge Cincinnati Reds and Ohio State fan, always on Facebook, encouraging me, uh, guest preaching at different places. And I always said to Carolyn, well, I told him, Paul, you're my, at this stage of my life, okay, I'm 70. I need someone that's 20 plus years older than I am to show me that part of the journey. So I think that mentorship is great. And the one thing I think he showed me is get out there and have fun, go to ball games, do all that kind of stuff. Because sometimes I can be too serious.
I really loved when you talked about Elizabeth, because during the darkest, most difficult seasons of my life, there were people who helped me through that. And I'll tell you, one of the phrases that I hate the most is God never gives us more than we can handle, because I don't think God punishes us or tries teaching us stuff by throwing stuff at all. What I do know is that in the darkness, God is present. And one of the ways that we know God is present is through the people who are journeying through those difficult times with us. So one of my best friends, his name's Austin. He's a pastor up in West Monroe. I remember there was this one day when I felt overwhelmed, and I was sitting out in the alley outside my apartment, and I was just sobbing. And Austin just sat there with me, and he didn't say anything. He didn't try to fix anything. He just sat there. And Austin's presence felt like God's presence in that moment. The miracle that God did through Austin was just the miracle of presence. And Austin is one of my best friends. I've told him this story a million times. But during these difficult times, I hear people say to me sometimes, like, how is God even present? Like, do you not see everything that I'm going through? And the answer is yes. God is present here through me, through your family that's sitting in the hospital room. God is present through the people who stop and help. Like, God is absolutely present in the most darkest times. And for Mary, I wouldn't say it was a dark time, but you mentioned this in one of the other chapters we're going to talk about. But and you mentioned it in a previous session, like the stigmas that Mary probably had to deal with as a teenage unwed mother, right? I mean, there was probably a lot of stuff that people said, and she had to go through a lot, and to have Elizabeth there to help her through this whole season.
The thing there is the angel just laid all this stuff on her and left.
Yeah.
So we have these visions from God, and then where are you, God? And so that's where God's messengers, people, become so important in our life. Physical presence.
Yeah.
I'm going to go tell my fiance I'm pregnant and say God did it. And then you leave. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, let me ask you really quickly, as far as giving up on perfect and everything we talked about, what is one challenge you would give people who are reading or having this conversation with their small groups?
Well, I would say in whatever situation you're in is expectation. Like, for me, a marriage, I had an unfair expectation, on my wife. I think judgment on yourself, can be part of that. Or even children. Like, I remember when we moved my mom from her apartment to assisted living, we were going through her stuff. Now, this is 4 years ago. And so we found a bunch of my grades, F, D minus, all that. She got mad all over again. I said, Mom, I'm 66 years old. Mom, I have my doctorate. I graduated from the University of Cincinnati with honors. I've written almost 20 books, Mom. You see? And so sometimes, even like parents, if you have kids that are struggling, don't give up. You know, God's got
Mm,
a big plan for those kids, and I think that's
mm,
another thing. Yeah.
mm. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. I hope that maybe you've been challenged to look at your own life and evaluate your life and how you expect perfection out of yourself and perfection out of others. And I really hope that you will be challenged in the next week or so to really let go of those expectations. It is a huge burden to expect perfection at all times. And so I really hope that this conversation challenged you and helped you and maybe gave you some tools to be able to not expect so much out of you and those around you. Well, listen, if you want to keep diving deeper into this conversation, I want to invite you to text the word GROW, GROW, to the number 225 307 0662. When you text that, you'll get a link back to a home sheet. And when you click on it, you'll get scriptures that we talked about today, some questions to think about, and a challenge for you to live out this week. Well, I'm so grateful that you joined us. I look forward to next week as Michael and I continue our conversation. And remember, I love you, God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'll see you next week.